Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we are going to bring you the first look at a forthcoming premium Italian destroyer. This is Tier VII's FR25. There are not many premium Italian destroyers in the game. FR25 will actually be the third. Paolo Emilio has quite the reputation up at high tiers because of, well, her little smoke and charge and mini-nuke torpedoes gimmick. But the other Italian premium we have in the game right now is Tier 6's Leone, and Leone is not that well known. In fact, her quote-unquote gimmick is that she has, I'd say, thoroughly mediocre detection, but a really solid alpha out of her guns. She's that ship is a bit of a struggle to have really good games in. FR25 here is going to come to the game at Tier 7, and if you want the quick summary, this is what happens if you blend a French destroyer and an Italian destroyer. What are you talking about, Raptor? Well, all right, let me kind of explain what you're looking at here. As near as I can figure, FR25 is the hull and overall layout of a Vaquelin class French destroyer, which is the Tier 7 French tech tree ship. FR25, however, has one fewer torpedo launcher. Vaquelin actually has 3 triples. She's got one kind of each side, and then this center line one back here at the aft. You see here, FR25 only has one center line up forward. And then FR25's main battery is still 139mm guns, but they've been replaced. The shells have been replaced with Italian-style shells, which is to say she has high explosive and SAP. So that's rather than HE and AP. So that's kind of the ship in a nutshell, but let's kind of dig into the weeds and talk about kind of what makes this ship tick. Survivability, 19,000, yikes, hit points. This is huge. This is absolutely massive. Not only is this nearly 4,000 more hit points than Luca Torigo has, which is the tech tree Italian Tier 7, it's coming up on rivaling the 2 German Tier 7 destroyers, that's Z31 and Z39. Z39 is the premium boat, which have only a few hundred more hit points than this. So this is an incredibly beefy destroyer for Tier 7. This is not a ship you want to run into in the start of a game if you're tooling around and you're Shiratsuyu or an Akatsuki or something, because this guy outclasses you huge in terms of health and gunpowder. Maneuverability and concealment. Actually, no. Let's take a quick look at armor. Make sure that I'm not missing anything. Shouldn't be. Nope. Looks like we got 16 mils throughout. Yeah, nothing exciting. Nothing exciting about the armor. She'll get shot and take lots of damage when she does. Maneuverability and concealment. 36 knots, 690 in the turning circle, 4.4 on the rudder shift. Now, one place that FR25 is going to feel a little bad compared to Luca Torigo is she is a little slower. She's in fact 2 knots slower. Her hull speed and handling is, well, it's not quite identical to Vaquelin, but it's very, very close. The turning circle is within 20 meters, and the rudder shift is about 10% slower. But it's not so much that a human player is going to be able to really detect things without running like a series of tests. So for all intents and purposes, if you've driven a Vaquelin in game, you have a pretty good sense of what this ship is going to handle like. The trick is that this 36 knots of speed is far more mediocre for the tier than Luca Torigo's 38 knots. 38 is starting to get pretty solid, and I mentioned that in Torigo's video. But 36 is a little more on the pedestrian side, right? Like the slowest Tier 7 destroyers are over in the Japanese tree. That's Shiratsuyu and Udachi at 34 knots. And then there's a couple of 35s, Skonia and Mahan are 35, and then here we have 36. So, like, you're not worse in tier, but you're definitely in, like, the bottom half, bottom third kind of thing. So, nothing to get too excited about with the speed. Concealment, you see there's 7 flat on the surface with her permanent camo installed. Full stealth rig on FR25 will get her down to 6.29 kilometers on the surface. That is identical to Jervis, basically 6.3. That's fairly middle of the road. Right. For example, I was talking earlier about Akatsuki running down on Akatsuki. He's faster than you, but you're stealthier than he is. right? So tier 7 continues to be that weird tier where just all kinds of strange things happen with destroyer detections and all kinds of weird interactions in here. But yeah, 6.3 for a tier 7 destroyer is not bad. It's really not bad. I'd say it's pretty average. It's not above average for sure. There's a lot of boats in this tier that are worse. And again, including her tech tree cousin, Luca Torrigo, over 200 meters worse detection. But there are some that are, quite a few, of course, that are better. So not too shabby. Main battery. As we mentioned earlier, the main battery is comprised of French-style 139 millimeter 40 caliber guns. However, they are not carrying French shells. You see there, those are Italian HE shells and Italian SAP shells. Now, I want to talk about a couple of things that really, really honk me off about FR25's main battery. The first is the reload speed. You see there, 6.6 seconds. Compare that to Luca Torrigo's 5.5 seconds on her 120 millimeter guns, and you kind of go, well, okay. All right. Okay, fine, right? Like, Luca Torrigo's guns are smaller caliber. They should reload faster. But these are the same caliber guns as Vaquelin, basically the same shit, more or less the same caliber guns. Vaquelin reloads in 4.8 seconds. What? Why is this reload like 40% worse? Or whatever it is. It's like 35% worse. It's bad. It's bad, whatever it is. What is going on here? I don't understand. So that legit feels terrible. Main battery range is essentially the same for both ships. You see there 12.7 there for FR25, and you're looking at Vaquelin is 13.1. So, I mean, it's pretty close, right? One thing that FR25 has going for is she is not working with the gimped ranges that most of the other Italian destroyers have to deal with. So that's good. Her main battery range for the tier is very, very typical. But the other thing that I want to point out that absolutely makes me crazy, look at the damage on the 139 millimeter SAP shell. 2,700 damage. Okay, all right, fine, seems reasonable, until you consider that Luca Torrigo's 120 millimeter SAP shell in the same tier does 2,850 damage per shell. What? This is a shell type that ought to have a pretty easy number to calculate. For example, the Italian Tier 9 and Tier 10 destroyers have 135 millimeter guns. Those shells, those SAP shells, do 3,050 damage. The 120 millimeter shells do 2850. It looks like 2850 here at this tier. So we go 2850. So you could easily say that this shell should probably do, let's say, 3,100 damage. Just round it off. 3,100 damage. Call it a day. And that's not what it does. Somehow it's gimped. Why is it gimped? I don't know. But that really frustrates me because it doesn't. It's one of those illogical wargaming decisions that seems to defy explanation. I could understand it if it was a game balance thing, but her reload is already bad. Yet you've already got an Italian destroyer in this tier with better reload and more damage on SAP shells. So don't try to sell this to me as a game balance thing. I'm not buying it, okay? So, yeah, I don't know what's happening there. I'm not sure why that is what it is, but just keep in mind that your SAP shells will feel like they don't hit as well as they should. So the other thing I'll point out is because you're dealing with a much longer range. You see that max dispersion ellipse 110. That's much more traditional, like what you're used to dealing with out of a destroyer with longish range guns for the tier. Torpedoes, as mentioned earlier, FR25 comes with 2 triple sets, both center line mounted. You see that they have an 80-second reload, a 15,000 alpha, 68 knots of speed, and an 8-kilometer range. These are really, really, really nice torpedoes. Now, are they quite as good as the ones on Vaquelin? They are not. Vaquelin also mounts 68-knot, 8-kilometer torpedoes, but hers hit a bit harder. So, okay. But these are not terrible torpedoes by any stretch of the imagination. These are quite solid, especially as Italian torpedoes go. You know, most Italian destroyers have like the meme torps, right? With the crazy range and they're stupidly slow. The sea mines, as we like to think of them. These are not those. So FR25, I'm speculating, maybe the reason the gun SAP is artificially nerfed is because they've given this ship a torpedo armament with some real bite to it in the hands of a player who is willing to take the risk and find a map position and able to work in to get those 8-kilometer torpedoes to do some really good work, because those battleships or cruisers that get hit by those will know they have been kissed. Those feel bad. Depth charges. Yep, she's got depth charges. Go us. Now, one thing I will point out briefly, just while we were talking about it, most of the Italian depth charges up to this point have been 3,200 damage. You see here, FR25s are 2,400 damage. This is more typical of the French depth charges in terms of the damage they churn out. So when quote-unquote ASW warfare becomes a thing, you will notice that FR25 is a little less capable in this department than her Tier 7 counterpart in the tech tree. But right now, without any real feel for how that's all going to play out, I don't really want to get too far in the weeds there. So yeah, she has them. They're not quite as good as the Italian depth charges. They're more like the French depth charges. A defense. This is one place that she shares a lot of commonality with her sister ships. FR25 has no outer ring. She has a middle ring there. You see 116 DPS on the back of these 37mm 54 caliber guns that kind of scattered around the deck here. She's got, looks like she's got two amidships kind of on each side of the ship. And then she's got a couple of these little 20mm Berettas parked up on the superstructure, and that's it. So again, as is typical of the Italian destroyers, she has just enough AA to basically, snuff out some fighters that are loitering and keeping her spotted. But she is not a meaningful threat to any kind of maneuvering attack aircraft or just attack aircraft in general. So yeah, don't get excited about that. Nothing to really write home about. Quick look at consumables. We've got our exhaust smoke generator, 30 seconds. That's as kind of to be expected. And an engine boost. Now, what's notable about this is not, keep in mind, this is not the emergency engine boost that the other Italian destroyers have. Though that consumable lasts for like 25 or 30 seconds or 20 seconds, some short amount of time, and has like a 2.5-minute cooldown for a 25% speed bonus. This is kind of the French style 20% speed boost on a 2-minute use and a 2-minute cooldown. And remember, you can, with the right modules and captain skills, you can lengthen that consumable action time out to about probably 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. You can get a lot of use out of one of these engine boosts. So this FR25 is going to play, I think, more like a French destroyer than an Italian one. If you like the mid-tier French destroyers, I think you're going to like FR25. The biggest difference between this ship and, again, I keep coming back to Vaquelin, is the health pool and then the artillery, right? Like, that SAP shell should allow you to do really mean things to opposing destroyers if you catch one out. But again, the damage right now feels a little gimpy, or at least gimpier than it should for this caliber of SAP shell. Anyway, guys, there's our quick first look at a premium Italian destroyer, FR25. Hope you enjoyed that. Wash your hands, be safe, and I'll catch you next time.